There's that red button. Hello, we're live. Hello, hello. Happy Thursday evening. It's evening for me anyway, probably most of you. So, how are you? I wanted to get in here tonight and talk a little bit about energetic frequencies. So, I've been talking about that all month. Let's go in a little bit deeper if you don't know what I'm talking about. And yeah, we'll dive in. And if you're hopping on, if you could say hello, I'd love to know where you're listening from. If you leave a comment and I don't respond, this is streaming in multiple places. So I may not see it in the moment. I may have to go back later and respond, but I will do that. I'll check later everywhere that this is. And if I can see your comment, I'll definitely respond. And if you watch the replay later, also please say hello and where you're listening from. And if you have any questions, this particular topic of all the things that I talk about with what I do, this particular topic I think is the most unknown for people, or the most like I've heard of it, but I'm not sure. So I definitely want to answer your questions if you have them while we are going into it. Okay. So we're talking about emotional frequencies. We're talking about emotion and the energy of emotion. I don't know how that lands for you, but when I first learned it, I was like, what do you mean emotion has energy, like a frequency to it? I didn't really get that. Um, so maybe that's just me, but what that means is every emotion that we feel, from the really great emotions to the emotions that feel a little bit more challenging or a lot more challenging, it's an energy that carries that emotion through our body. And the word emotion itself actually means energy in motion. So it's energy moving through our body, and it's moving at different speeds. So the speed that anger moves is one speed. The speed that joy moves is another speed. The speed that sadness moves, they all have their own signature, their own frequency. And when I say frequency, and you'll hear the word frequency or vibration interchanged, but what that means is, so it's a wave, right? The frequency is the number of waves that they measure in 1 second. So there's technology that measures that, and it's the number of waves in 1 second. Okay, so we all have emotions, and they are meant to move through us. So just like water, think of a brook or a river. It moves, and it'll move and flow until it hits a rock or a dam. And then it goes, okay, can't go that way. It goes this way. And if it's jammed up over here, it'll go again. Energy is the same way as water. It wants to move. It will move, but it can get blocked. And if we remember from high school physics, I guess, energy doesn't change. I mean, energy never ends or dies. It just changes form, but it's going to keep moving. It's going to change. Um, Emotions can become, there's the frequency, they can become chemical. So we have a chemical part of an emotion, right? The certain hormones like love. Love produces the hormone oxytocin, and there's a chemical counterpart to that emotion. So it might change, energy can change, but it never ends. And if it doesn't move through our body, it can stay stuck. So here, let me see, I would like to share something with you, if I can. Hold on 1 second. Let's see. Here we go. Just always takes me a moment to figure that out. There we go. Is that big enough for you? Let me know if you can't see it. So this is a chart that shows an emotional frequency scale. So over here on the left, these are emotions, and we can also say, this is taken from David Hawkins. If you've ever heard of David Hawkins, he was quite a well-known psychologist. I believe he's passed away. He has several books. A great book is called Letting Go, which he really talks about how to let go of some emotions. But he did a lot of research and worked with people who were really stuck. And so he created this particular chart. But if you were to Google emotional frequency chart or anything like that. There's lots of versions of it, but I like this one because over here on the left, he has the emotions. And also, he says that that's a level of consciousness that we live in. So if we are stuck in anger, our daily experience of life is the consciousness that we live in, and it's an angry consciousness. And over here on the right is our view of life. So someone really stuck in anger, holding the frequency of anger in their body, they're very antagonistic out in the world, right? That's not surprising. So over here on the left are the emotions or the levels of consciousness. The numbers here in the second column represent the frequency that I talked about, the number of little waves per second. Here's, more of the emotional state that is associated with this level of consciousness. And then again, the view of life. So if somebody is at a level of consciousness where they are stuck in fear, what they feel very often is anxiety, and their view of life is it's frightening. I don't feel safe. Okay, so these numbers, this is what I really wanted you to start to get a picture of, because probably these terms, not that unfamiliar, right? But the energetic frequency. So this is the energy moving through your body, and it can get stuck in your cells. It can get stuck in tissues. You'll notice, I think, if you can see it, I hope. I wonder if I click here, if that makes it bigger. Nope. Wait, full screen layout. Is that better? It's not bigger. It just takes me away. Okay, whatever. These numbers are very low, right? 20 compared to 700. So shame is actually the lowest point that somebody could be on this scale. I'm going to put myself back there. Okay. So if a person living in shame is having energy moving at a very slow pace, and it's very heavy, and they feel heavy in their body, it's a very dense, heavy energy. I don't know how else to say it. And slow. And here's what I wanted to point out to you, because when I first heard this, I was like, wow. Two things. Number one, crocodiles, which are like prehistoric reptiles, right? Mostly heavy, slow. They just lay around and don't move. The frequency of their life force energy is also 20. And a dead body that's decomposing, it takes energy to decompose the tissues on a dead body, right? So that energy that's required is not much less than 20, right? 20 is pretty low. So that tells me that someone that is holding a lot of shame in their body, they're like the Walking Dead, right? They're like just a little bit above a crocodile sitting in the sun or a dead body decomposing. That's how they're going through life. And shame is a really, really common thing that people hold. I want to explain to you the difference between guilt and shame. This was another thing that I was like, oh, I didn't really see it that way before, but now that I understand it, I like to share that. Shame is really about who you are. So when somebody's feeling shame, it's about who they are as a person. Like, I am bad. I am unlovable. I am whatever, ugly. So it's the lowest because it's about their being. It's like how they feel about their own beingness. Guilt is about something that they did. So you can say, I feel guilty because I said something bad or I did something bad. So it's slightly better because it doesn't say I am bad. It says I did something bad. They're both pretty low. And when we hold guilt or shame, and a lot of people grew up with adults, parents, teachers, whatever, who used shame and guilt as a way to motivate them, What's wrong with you? Why can't you, what, blah, 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 right? What are you, an idiot? Um, all of those ways that adults might interact. And so people have been holding shame and guilt in their bodies for 50 years or longer. Okay, so those are some of the lower energies. And as we move up, when you hit 200, so all of these below 200 are really like a person living in a very victim mentality. In fact, it's called a victim consciousness because they feel like life is happening to them. They don't have any say. All of their experience is the result of things that people and situations outside of them are doing. And so they're at the effect of. So it's very victim consciousness. When you get up to 200, now you start to see yourself not as a victim. You start to experience life from a more empowered place. So you're not feeling victimized, but you're more empowered because you have life views now that are more hopeful. You can feel, excuse me, satisfied. You can have meaning in life, right? So as we go up, a lot of things get better. And I would say at the top, enlightenment, probably very few human beings make it there, but I would guess that Jesus was at that level, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, like all of the people who have seemed really enlightened make it up there. But most people, actually most people are down here all the time. And then, you know, if you decide to do some work and go to work on it, you can get yourself up here. And why would you decide to go to work on it? Well, these energies staying stuck in your body or staying as your regular place that you live, like your emotional home state, they affect how your body functions. They affect your digestion. It disrupts everything because the systems of the body have their own energetic frequency that they're supposed to operate at for optimal function. When this frequency is present in the body, it disrupts. It's just like, here, I'm going to stop sharing this if I can. It's just like, no, I don't want to do that. Okay. Oh, I know. There we go. Okay. It's just like a radio. So in your house, if you have a radio, and right now it's off because you're listening to me, and you go, oh, let me turn the radio on. You don't see the radio waves in your living room. You don't see anything. But as soon as you turn that knob on, you'll hear music because that knob will turn on and the tuner will connect to a frequency, waves, radio waves that are present in your house. You don't see them, but they're there. The same thing with our body. We don't see these frequencies, but they're there. And our body has this frequency that it wants to operate on, but we have anger and shame and grief at that frequency, and it's messing up. It's like messing up your tuning, really, is an easy way to think of it. Because if you want to listen to country music, you turn your radio on and you want country music, you turn to a certain frequency, right? AM, FM, 102.7, and you hear whatever you hear. You're not going to hear classic rock on that one. You're not going to hear opera on that one. You're going to hear country music. So your body has a certain frequency, like 105.5, that it wants to operate on. But you're holding anger and shame and all that stuff. And now it's getting staticky. You're not holding the 105.5. When you're driving in your car and you start losing the radio station. So I'm only using that as an example because that helped me really like understand this concept. Like, oh, it's actually like a thing in my body. And when the emotions get stuck, so here's what I want you to know. If you have health issues that have not gotten better, so you do all the things, you go to the doctors, and it could be chronic long-term things like autoimmune conditions, cancer, any like chronic long-term thing, digestive issues, pain. You just have pain. You don't know why. You wake up in pain. You have pain in your hips. You have pain in your lower back. you want to look at what possible energy from emotions, and it could be from 50 years ago, is stuck in there. Anger very often gets stuck in the legs. I would think it makes sense that those heavier, denser energies would get stuck in the lower body because they're heavy. They're heavy and dense. So when you have hip pain, this is a big way of how I learned about this was I had chronic hip pain. I also had anger in my body since childhood. And I'll be the first to admit it. I remember being angry as a kid. I had conditions in my household that were not great, as a lot of us do, right? It's not like it was not typical, but there were conditions there. I had anger. I held anger. I used to be like, I can remember being in like sixth grade going, I am not going to cry. They are not going to see me cry, right? Like holding it in until that became the only way that I knew how to be for a long time. But the pain in my hips, very much related to that. Pain in the lower back. Dr. John Sarno, if you have chronic back pain, Dr. John Sarno was head of rehabilitative medicine at NYU. He wrote a book on it, anger, also cancer and anger. So I just wanted to talk to you a bit about this. I'm doing a workshop at the end of the month. It's the Body Revival Part 2 workshop, which was all about, part 1 was all about, in a lot more depth than tonight, the energy centers of the body, what symptoms you notice, how different things affect in the body. And part 2 is going to be, how do we move it out? Okay, got it. I understand the impact. Yep, I can see in my life where that happened. Now, how do I move it out? Because part 1 went so long, actually, I didn't get a chance to go into that. My intention was to do it all at once, but we'll do the second part at the end of the month. It'll be the last Thursday of the month. So I'll be posting that. You'll see plenty of posts about it. But even if you can't come to that, just start to look in your own life. How is energy stuck? Because sometimes, here's especially like people who go to therapy, again, grew up in a household that wasn't great or had a divorce or something, and they go to therapy. And in therapy, they work on how they think, right? They do a lot of work on coping with what happened to them and how they think. But if they don't ever address the energy of the trauma, it's trauma. It's just life. It's just life, but it's trauma. If they don't address the energy of that in their body, they will keep feeling the same way. So they're like, I'm doing therapy, I'm doing all the things I know to do, but that's because that frequency is still in your body. So you got to move it out. And that's what we're going to talk about in the workshop at the end of the month. I'll be talking a lot more about that this month in all kinds of places. So if you have any questions, thank you for joining, popping in. I would love to answer your questions. So just please put them in the comments and say hello. And if you have any experience with your own energy, if you've done some of that work of moving the energy out, share that. I would love to hear it. I mean, I'm always sharing my stuff or my clients' stuff, but I would love to hear yours and what your experience is of that. Okay. All right. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern time, I'm doing another live on the core wounding. Core wounding is the wounds that happen in childhood and how that stays with us, not from an energy perspective, but in other ways. So that'll be tomorrow. Maybe I'll see you there. If not, have a great weekend. And yeah, post in the comments. Thank you.